Steve Douglas.
Where are you from?
England originally, but I now live in San Jose.
Talk slower.
Okay.
I think it was a critical changing point in skateboarding, going from the big five, the guys that didn't really skateboard, to now being run solely in the hands of skateboarders.
You got Steve and Rodney that kind of blew up the whole hard goods world.
Everybody thought we were idiots at first, and then they thought we were geniuses. And it's a fine line, pea brains, profits. It wasn't like a plan. We didn't know we'd ever get that big.
You got Pierre and myself that kind of helped bring up the whole skate shoe thing.
We had a good relationship, with Steve and Rodney, and the whole world industry really helped, Ethnies being on the map. But I think Ethnies will probably have done good because at that time, I was the first skateboarders making shoes, so I knew exactly what I need from a functional standpoint. We could do it right away, and I knew also who is the guys to talk to, to know how to do it right.
Per Wellander. He started Birdhouse, obviously, with Tony.
You were torn, because yes, I know Rocco, I'm very good friends with Rocco, and seeing what he would do, and I say, you know what, Palo Alto's not responding the way they should, and this does not feel right. I want to do what feels right for the riders and for me, so we felt it was best to part ways.
There was tons of distributors starting. You got Per Holtnick in Sweden.
We'd fly to California, we'd go to the ASR shows, and of course we'd always go to Steve, and I would challenge him to a $10,000 ping pong game, and he'd turn me down because that showed that I had confidence, and he'd hate to lose. Or we'd shoot basketball hoops for $1 a board per year for one hoop. But it was like that, Steve liked that, and we liked that. And
Jean-Marc Visset from France, he set up, the best and the biggest French distributorship.
But over here in France, there was very few boards distributed, and it seemed to be the brand that everybody was looking for, but it was very hard to find. So I was definitely very stoked to get World Industry back then.
Christian Seawalt and Jorg, they kind of owned Germany.
Everybody that is in the industry right now learned from Rocco, basically, and learned also from the mistakes from the other guys.
Kevin Harris up in Canada.
My kid doesn't go buy a board because that board's not going to break. He buys it because it's an image control board. Even if he likes the graphics, if he's never heard of the brand name, he won't touch it. So Rocco just created that brand recognition that was just overwhelming and huge, and listening, I think, to what the skaters really wanted at that time.
Reggie Barnes, the biggest distributor in the US.
Because we were the new kids on the block, because of the fact that we had World. So many shops were coming to us because they needed that. Then they thought it was a good time to come to us so that their brands could also sort of ride on the shirt tails of World Industries. Another popular company that came about in that era was New Deal.
Well, New Deal was definitely positioned much more of a parental acceptance appeal than World Industries was. So that's part of like the yin and yang that happened. So possibly with that's part of our success, was that we weren't on the same path as Steve, and Steve wasn't on ours.
In the early 90s, it was more just like, hey, we can all do this, and isn't this great? We've got control right now, and we can do this for skateboarding. And it was just a very exciting time at that beginning time.
I probably wouldn't have started a company if that hadn't begun. I wasn't the first guy in the gate. I was dabbling around in the business, and as those doors began to open, that's when I sat back and say, what can I do? Well, I know all the players, I know what's going on in skateboarding, I can start a skateboard company.
Foundation, even though it was like the bastard child of the whole World group, I think if we weren't there, we would have been worse off. World Industries was the mentor company for me, and Steve, was what I was looking at, of how to do things, no business school, just how do I do this? Okay, well, this guy's doing a pretty good job of it. I'll just emulate him, and what he's doing. And he really took control of what he perceived as a way to do things. And then that spawned off a lot of other individuals at the same time that saw, okay, well, if he can do it, I can do it.
I think, in the 90s, it was like a quick turnover, and people were constantly looking for new ideas because it was such a small little industry that any new blood, kind of was good. With stereo, we kind of carved our own path. As far as we didn't really ever have to like fit in. Since the design and stuff was good, it just kind of had an influence in that way, and we got to keep going. We're like watching videos like, that's not skating, like that's some jock training shit. This is bullshit. Like, let's show them what skating's about with a visual sound,
The first video, shooting the Super 8 film and
putting a lot of jazz music in there and making it a visual representation coming from, you know, who we were at the time. The way Mark did that with everything he did with his board graphics, that was the idea behind that. And fortunately it worked.
Color was actually really, really good. It was amazing for the short period that it lasted, but Metaver, it just wasn't going good between him and Noblo. We wanted to take Color and take the name and then just move it somewhere, just take everything, and Metaver was like, no, we're going to keep Color going. You can't have it.
And next thing you know, Mike T goes, why don't you talk to Rocco? And so I went and talked to Rocco, and we started Prime. I was there on more of a daily basis and dealing with more of the daily things. Chris dealt with a lot of the graphics, and we kind of both dealt with, you know, getting new Tame Riders. It was rad. It was just like, you know, a college of fun.
His late 80s, 90s, a 16-year-old would be consumed with skating maybe half his waking time. Today, you have internet, email, cell phones, video games, snowboarding, maybe even surfing. A lot of people divide their time into a lot of smaller slivers now. I think that creates basically a different consumer. And when you have a different consumer, you have to really figure out a way of appealing to that consumer on all those slivers.
And I remember the summer of 2000 watching the X Games and being like, oh shit, we're finally here. Society accepted us, because I could see all of the ads on TV that had skateboarding tied into them. And I said to myself at the time, well, it finally happened and skateboarding will never be the same. And business-wise, it hasn't been the same. And as skateboarding was growing in 99, 2000, 2001, it was really a race to deliver product, and once that race ended in the middle of 2001, we've just been in a commodity status now.
Now I think skateboarding is way better and way stronger and way better run than it ever has been. I mean, not only are the skateboard companies run by skateboarders, the distributors around the world have changed.
I think right now is one of the best times in skateboarding. It's like you have people on longboards, downhill boards. I mean, you got people riding like little 70s boards now. I get people that come to my store and they want to buy like all these little Black Knights that they find, you know, and stuff like that that we have in our office or on the wall. I mean, absolutely every shape of a skateboard is being made again, and every type of skateboarding is being done again. I had a couple young guys, 12-year-olds, come to my store the other day. They wanted to buy freestyle boards.
So I'm not really sure where skateboarding is going to be in, 20 years. In some ways, I kind of hope it implodes again and we all start from scratch again, because then it all goes back to the true meaning of what it's all about, and it takes all the money and the bullshit out of the picture. Because I think we all get too caught up in that dollar sign sometimes.
But ultimately the skaters will decide where it's going to go, because they're in charge, regardless of whatever big businesses are involved with skateboarding or that perspective. The boss is right over there, you know. See the kid rolling in, he's the boss. What he wants now, next year, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, that's going to tell the whole story.